Okay, so usually I don't do keyboard reviews, but I thought I'd talk about this really briefly since getting into the habit of including my thoughts after my sound test. So this is the Tiger80 Lite, the plastic variant, the better variant. And I think that this is the perfect workboard. It's a TKL, so you have all the buttons you need for Excel functions. You have the F row, got your this thing, and because it's a plastic case, there's no need to worry about case ping, case resonance, that yada yada stuff that typically with aluminum boards, you do have to design around that, right? A lot of the weaknesses in cheaper alu boards is that they just suffer from case ping and case resonance. Now, the Monsgeek series, I think, is one of the first, at least for me, to really overcome that barrier. Of course, you need to force break it, but that's very easy to do for the sound you get out of it, right? And also no flex cut PCB. Speaking of flex cut PCBs, Tiger80 Lite has one, 1.2 millimeter flex cut PCB. It's okay. It had so many. I know you can run plate foam, plate foam, but there were so many. I just got concerned. As some deep inside me, I just had put the plate foam in there to cover the flex cuts. I didn't want to tape it. I was just like, I'll run the plate foam anyway. I need the board to be a little quieter. Why not? And it did the job. It's not super foamy, but it's a little undernote, a little spice there, But yeah, that's the PCB and the plate foam. Let's talk about the sound, right? So the sound, as you could probably hear, it's quiet to middle, I'd say. It could go quieter. I could just throw in silent switches, but I don't really want to. And my coworkers don't really mind having a little bit of sound coming from a keyboard. So I thought this was perfect. I think the KTT Kang whites I threw in are just enough to where, with the plate foam that rings it in, is just enough to not make anyone upset. Yeah. And let's move on to the pricing. Pricing is $130 for the full kit. That includes case, PCB, and free stabilizers, as well as the foams and the free tape mod and shims. So actually, I mentioned this before. These are 1.2 millimeter PCBs. Nowadays, we have the TX 1.2 millimeter stabs, but because they provide cherry stabs for free, cherry screw-ins, you have to use shims. But I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I found that many times, now you have to use stabilizer pads, right? And the ones I always think, if people are like, oh, stabilizers makes things mushy, blah, blah, blah. That's if you lube them on top. I found that when I put stabilizer pads on top of the PCB, it closed the width enough to where the stabs are happy and they don't wobble anymore. Because I tried to install it without anything, and I did notice wobble, unfortunately. Stab pads fix that. No more wobble. And as you can hear, the stabs sound fine. So that's a little trick. Might not work for every 1.2 millimeter PCB. Might not work for every stab. But it's just a trick I've been doing for the longest time to avoid using shims, because I absolutely hate installing stabilizer shims. It's a skill issue, okay? I admit it. It's a skill issue. And I own it, okay? Now I'll do whatever I can to avoid it, but there's that. So yeah. That's all I really have to say about the Tiger80 Lite. This is Aifei Apollo, and I know these are clone caps. Just put it simply, there has been a case of thievery at the office from people not associated with the office. So I wanted to make a board where, hey, if someone were to steal it, I wouldn't mind losing it. It's gonna hurt, but obviously I don't want like GMK on there, right? And put it this way, a set of GMK is the same price as the board itself. So I knew that Aifei Keycaps, the ABS variant, holds up very nicely in terms of sound, and I'm just super happy with the price for performance. So yeah, I think if you were to total this board, let's say $130 for the board, $33 for the keycaps, and let's say about 45 for these lubed and filmed. Well, these are KTs, you can't film them, so it's just lubing them. So let's say 30-ish. So 30 plus 130, 160 plus 33 is like 193 for the entire build, not including tools. You need to build everything. That is a really good value proposition. So yeah, if you're wondering what workboard to bring to the office, I highly recommend this one. It's light. You're not going to break your back carrying this. And it's very inoffensive if you want to build it that way. If you want to build a clack monster, and I have bought PP and palm plates just to test those variations, though who knows when I'll get to them, because this will be thrown in the office and probably kept there for a long time. But I do have those coming along the way just to test and have fun with the board. But yeah, I think this is a great, not only office board, but just a first board in general to get around with. Because if you only use the plate foam, you could still hear the personality of the switches, for sure. It does not kill it at all. It does not kill the sound or anything like that. It just dials it in a little bit with a little, in trade-off for a little foamy. So anyways, sorry about rambling. I know I haven't made a video in a long time, so I thought I'd make this. I got a little bored, decided to finally build the Tiger80 Lite. I was going to hold out for the PP plate to put with the KTT roses, but I thought, screw it, I'll just build it now. It's a very simple build process. So yeah, hope y'all take care. I'll catch y'all later.